Welcome back, my lovely subscribers. Welcome back to MO2. Meet me at MO2. I almost forgot my own name. I have invited back these lovely, my lovely compadres, Sylvester, Mr. Rahman, Abdul, and the lovely, I say Dul with the Dula, not Dula, just Dul.
Not Dul.
And the lovely Henry. Let me get my vowels correct. And the lovely Henry.
Henry.
Henry, yes. Not Henry, just Henry. Thank you, Madisha, Dr. Madisha. Well, and we're just serving pumpkin soup with roti. Because the mans them need to eat. You got to keep the mans them healthy, you know? Okay. So, today's episode, I'd love to talk about the development of Gambia and how it's our observation of the development of Gambia. I'd like to first introduce my guests. Again, I know you're all familiar and you enjoyed their last video. I enjoyed it immensely. And sorry, I'm going to stop you. First, I'd like to thank the production team. Tani, Abubakar. Now give it a time for me now. I had it right the first time. Abuba. He said I'm allowed to call him because I'm his auntie, so I'm allowed to call him that. So I'd like to thank all of the people that are supporting the thing and the subscribers who have bore with us through our difficulties, technical difficulties, but we have improved. And I'm really grateful for your help. Okay, so back to Gambia. Here we are on the west coast of Africa, and one of the smallest African nations. Who can remember the population? It's about
something million. Yeah.
2.7, 2.5 million?
I think it's 2.5. Yeah.
2.5. I think that's a little bit less than Jamaica. I think Jamaica might be 2.7. How about Trinidad? What kind of population do you have there?
1 point something million.
1 point something? Oh, okay. So we're pretty big in the grand scheme of things, but yet the smallest. As you know, there's a river. We are a country that is mostly a river, and yet I'm seeing a massive development for a very small nation like this. How do you see it, Henry? The development of, when you was here as a young'un, do you see that the growth of Gambia has exceeded in terms of the rate of development?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I come home every other year, just to see what's happening. And one of the first things that's noticeable is the amount of high-rise buildings that are going up. Well, when I say high-rise for Gambian standards, that are going up. That means that there is a market here, and majority of the individuals that are coming in doing it. So it's twofold. You've got investors coming in, building houses or building apartments, building stores for investment purposes. And then obviously you got people, Gambians in the diaspora, who are actually, sending money back actually to build homes for them and the family. One thing you got to understand about the Gambian culture, it is one of the most hospitable cultures in Africa. There you go. One thing you will get, and I always say this, and this is why, Gambians cannot go hungry. Because there was a time, and even up to now, that things are a little tight, things are a little difficult. You can go to any home, and if there is meals to eat, people will invite you to come and have a meal. It is frowned upon if you say no, so, which is great. And to buttress onto that, people in the diaspora send money home. You talk about being one of the smallest countries in Africa, but for the size of this country, Gambians actually is number one when it comes to remittances. When I say
number one in Africa, as far as the African countries, because I would have thought Jamaica or the Caribbean.
No. Remittances.
We send a lot of money
in Africa. Gambia is number one when it comes to remittances, and that's because we value family. Everybody's sending money fish money. For the mom and dad and all that stuff. There are things happening. So for the smallest country in Africa to be number one when it comes to remittances, it's very, very
That's
interesting.
fascinating.
Very interesting. Yeah.
So I just want to clarify fish money,
Yeah.
Abdullah. We're going to do this all day. Abdul,
Yes.
fish money. Explain for our viewers what fish money is. I know, but not everyone in the world knows what
Everybody
fish
knows.
money
Fish money is just the money that's provided for everyday meals, basically,
for.
Or-
Provided to whom?
to the family.
To the family.
So,
So I think what happens is if you have the opportunity to travel, you'll find you're now responsible for the rest of the family back home, and you'll send fish money back home, and that I suppose has contributed to the remittance services that are here in the Gambia. So, what can we say to the viewers that would actually? How can we not exclude the locals in that development that we're buying? The price is going to go up, gentrification, all of these things. Maybe if they just allowed us in a certain area to develop to the best of its potential, maybe a promenade down on the beach. I'm giving you ideas now, GT board. A promenade road that might take away some of the traffic here, because everyone's coming down here for the beach. So if you had a road going all the way along down to Fajara, just a single lane or something. It doesn't have to be, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a towns planner. I'd like to think I was, but I'm not. But it's just an idea. And I do worry that we're going to exclude some of the locals. And I don't know how, in town planning, anyone in town planning might be able to give us some ideas in the comments. How can we include? I know there's going to be a lot of employment for the locals, but I don't think that's good enough because they need to live close. Because a lot of the staff have to travel far to come in for that to work, and then it becomes a false economy because they're spending money on 3 or 4 taxis to get here. And I don't want that for them. And I don't know about social housing or how that works, but some thought needs to go in. It's all very well that we're going to have all these industry hotels and businesses here, but how will they get to work? They're going to need to be living in these areas. And
well, you've hit the nail on the head. There has to be some sort of social housing for people in these areas, because that's what has to be done. If the areas, like say this area, for example, that's how it's developing now, the government should have certain areas where they have social housing for the workers that can't afford to live in this area otherwise.
That's a good idea. So now maybe instead of getting this free aid to do, well, I don't know what it is they do with their aid, but maybe they could be sponsored, or the NGOs could think about sponsoring a piece of land instead of giving it away to some rich somebody. Allocate a large portion of land where people can come in and develop. Maybe some is for rental and some is for, and out of that, a proportion, maybe 10%, 20% could go to the locals. Has to be fair, a fair rent scheme of some sort. Yeah, it's just an idea. We're just shooting our shot.
I beg to disagree, if I could, on that whole idea. You see, social housing I think it's a dangerous thing.
Why?
From my observation where these things has taken place, social housing have a tendency to degenerate into subculture that is, a subculture of crime and all kind of illicit conduct, all kind of bad behavior. Because what you do is that you concentrate a lot of poor people together in a small space. It creates a subculture that is not the best one. I mean, look at New York, for instance. Good. And these little bastustans they have all over what they refer to as the inner city. You understand? This community and that community. And you have all of these housing development that is riddled with drugs and crime and all of that kind of stuff. That's why I think that the government here, perhaps, even if they need to do that, they should find a better way to do it, where you have not just a concentration of poor people, jammed together in one space, creating a horrible subculture. But you must have a mix of poor, middle income, and wealthy people living together side by side.
But yeah, we have to start somewhere. But I'm thinking maybe key workers would be something you could look at.
Or
You know,
if it,
for the government purposes, civilians. How do you say civil servants?
Civil servants, yeah.
Well,
Civil servant housing and stuff. I know what's happening now. I see a lot of banks buying real estate for their staff and literally having things built for their staff. So they're creating these little
key.
middle income neighborhoods and stuff, which is good. But what I see and I observe here in the Gambia is that you would find all of these beautiful houses being built, and right next door you see a little shack, and this guy owns that land.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't sell it for anything. You understand? And I think that's the way it should go. There's a natural development. You understand? That guy's land is increasing in value. And from my experience, where I come from, right, the people who have the land ultimately become the strong people in the society. Because they could go to banks, they could get loans to change the circumstances of their life.
Wealth.
Yeah, yes.
But what I also experienced, there was a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. Her mother had a house in Jamaica in Ochi. Ochi is a very well built, known tourist destination.
Yes.
And again, they experienced that regentrification, and a lot of people got pushed out. The locals got pushed out. They have to even pay for the beaches. Gambians don't do that. So, but there was, her mother had a house right next door to Sandals, and we all know what Sandals chain of hotels and resorts are capable of. And she had a little house right there, and they were trying to threaten and trying to offer her money. She wasn't buying any of it because the land is in the family for X amount of years, and it wasn't about money. But they think money can buy everything. I'm not sure if she's given up or if she's still there now, but for years she held on, and I would like that for individuals. But if you've never seen a certain amount of money, and by now you can help your family by selling that land, you know, it's difficult.
Let me just explain something, and I think it's very important that we understand one thing: culture. When it comes to having this conversation, we got to understand the culture that underpins the society within Gambia. I know you talked about false economy, which I will come to in a minute. But talking about lands, and you're right, you know, you will see one development here and then a little shack here and there, which is owned by something and they don't want to sell. Great, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. But what I realized in the past few years, but then before that, houses here, especially in the circular area, in the Combo area, is owned by one person, and that person dies, or it's owned by the family. That person dies, and the compound has to be one person say, "Oh yeah, I wanna." It's been betrothed. Oh, sorry, not betrothed, but it's been handed over to the rest of the family, and one person say, "I want to sell because I need the money for something." And I think in the Muslim religion there is something called, I think, miras, where after the person dies, they have to share the person's wealth and stuff like
Fairly.
And that is where, if you go to, so I was up and down the curator's place lately. If you go to the curator, she will tell you that is one of the biggest issues in the Gambia.
That one might want to do something and the rest of the family doesn't
want to do, and then obviously there is this whole dispute about land. And one thing is happening. There is quite a lot of family heirloom that is being sold off to foreign investors. Not just foreign investors. There's a tribe in the Gambia called the Sarahules.
But they're known to sit on property.
Yeah, I mean they are buying quite a lot of lands in key areas, and I think it's a good. I mean, they're very astute when it comes to, you know, that
kind of thing. But they've been doing it for many years. Yeah, so they're very experienced in this kind of thing.
But the reason I came on to that is because we are losing the value for what property was. You know, say in the 70s, in the 80s, and maybe even in the 90s. Now, there's quite a lot of people who are coming in. You'll find Indians who even knock on your door asking, "Are you selling your land?"
I thought Indians were here leasing.
Yeah,
they don't invest. Thank you.
Indians, Chinese, and Canada, they're knocking on your door asking if you're selling because they know.
Are they buying?
Yeah. They know.
Because I was under the impression that they're leasing and doing agriculture, whereas we're not.
No, they're doing agriculture, but if you look at most of the basic commodities that you need, food.
So they're selling us our own food.
Supermarkets, and they're the ones that can.
Where does that sound familiar? In UK,
in London,
the Chinese people selling us yam and banana, selling us our own food.
Yeah.
You know, and
this is the problem here. This is what when I'm talking about false economy. So again, I talked about remittances.
Yes.
Gambia should be rich from remittances. But what's happening?
Can a country be rich?
Wow. I'm not saying rich per se, but it should be. It should be where it is.
So where do you think that money goes, other than fish money? Where does that go?
Thank you. The fish money comes to you. You're kind of head of the household. Where do you spend it?
With the Indian or the Lebanese?
Exactly.
Who own all the supermarkets?
Yep.
And are feeding. They're in the food.
And I'm telling you, it's solely owned by these individuals. There is no Gambian investors in most of these, so that the money stays here. The money is taken out of the country again.
What is it? Explain the hydroform bricks.
It's a machine where basically you take the earth that you dig up from the ground, add 5% cement. There's a machine that compresses these blocks with 2,000 psi's of pressure, and it comes out and it's normal bricks. And
how long
so
does that
durable.
take to dry?
Overnight. Overnight.
You don't need the sun. So there's a very antiquated way of doing things.
I mean, the research that's been done on it in Gaza is the same principle as the houses that are built in Timbuktu or the Great Wall of China.
This is what I'm talking about. They built the Great Wall of China.
Exactly.
Was essentially formulated with this rammed earth, but there was also one in Benin.
Yeah,
that the colonialists took down.
The biggest structure on the planet,
bigger than the Great Wall.
Because
I've actually visited the Great Wall of China, and people were crying trying to climb it. I don't understand. I can't even fathom how it was built and how long it took. But Benin was bigger.
Yeah.
And I think it was the same rammed earth.
That's what I'm trying to say. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, I mean, people might not be au fait with the whole building structure and what goes into it and everything else, but research it. It's absolutely great. And if you go to some countries in East Africa and even some countries in West Africa now, South Africa is because the whole hydroform machine was first developed in South Africa.
Was it really?
Yeah. So I mean, in fact, they've got So
can we discuss the benefits of this
hydroform?
Hydroform.
Or stabilized earth bricks.
Hydroform or hydroform?
Form.
FOAM.
FOAM. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So hydroform bricks.
Yeah.
So you use 30% of the current building costs.
Yeah. So you
don't need cement.
You need cement, but
a little bit
5%.
minimal.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's clay and sand from the local. It's sourced locally.
Yeah.
You make these bricks from the earth, hence earth blocks, and you need minimal amounts of cement to stack them, and the benefits are fuel cost. You save money on fuel.
On fuel, yeah.
And you also save money, and
you save money on cement.
On cement,
yeah.
And
you're saving money. You're saving money on electricity because
it's cooler
for cooling your house down.
Yeah.
You find out that when you're in a mud house, for instance, it's cooler than a cement house because remember that cement is chemical.
That's right.
And then most of the.
Can you just say that again for the customers, because the subscribers, because we don't understand. You know, we see all of this sort of moss.
Yeah.
On the walls, because it draws in the humidity.
Humidity, exactly.
Because of the chemical. Because of the chemical composition.
Yeah.
Of the cement.
Yeah.
And we're not getting the best products.
Yeah.
UK has built it, and I don't know where they found that it's not serving them anymore, because even the way that they built in the old days, in Victorian houses, was what Darba and Wackel?
Yeah. Yes. Is it wattle and plaster?
Wackel and Darb. Sorry, I'm a bit dyslexic.
Plaster and wattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Which is an African version of building.
Yeah.
So, sorry, sir. You were
Yes, all
saying.
right. No, what I was trying to say is basically, you go into a ram earth house or stabilized earth brick or kind of like we've got interlocking bricks. You go into it, it's cooler than the normal. So when it's warm outside, it's cool inside, and when it's cool outside, it maintains that.
And it's
like,
important because here is so hot.
Exactly. One other thing I want to say as well: the cement, the sand that we're using to build over here is the sand that is mined from the Atlantic Ocean. It's full of salt.
Ah, so that's where we're going wrong. So they were using salt where they shouldn't have.
So
Sorry, sand that contains salt, which would soak up more
the chemical
water when it rains.
The chemical component of the cement and that salt actually it's not good combination. This is why if you go into most houses and you break it down, the rods that are being used in it, they're all disintegrating because of the chemical component of the cement and the salt.
Is that what it is?
So, and we're using the wrong type of cement. So if you look at the cement that is used for building ports and stuff like that, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different because they have to factor in the salt that is in the ocean that they're using.
But
so
I do understand why Gambians need to use the cheaper version, thinking, cost effective. But actually, in the long term, it's costing them.
I think
trying to maintain
the good thing that's happening now, people are beginning to mine away from. So, like the other day, I saw a website they're mining Casamance, and there is no salt in that sand.
But does it mean it's more money?
It's not. It's going to be more expensive because it's coming far away.
Yeah.
And
but it's worthwhile.
Hence the reason why
it's worthwhile doing that because of the longevity of
absolutely. Hence the reason why we need to come back. Africans, we've been building with clay and mud and all that stuff.
Can I just say, sir, your house, you've utilised the best of earth blocks. I must say, he's got a beautiful house, a dream house, with red brick. Can you tell us about your building?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the way that Henry was describing how earth blocks are made. That's how our blocks were made for the house. Before the house is built and things like that. Yeah, so we quite enjoy it so far.
It's cool.
It is cool.
It is cool. I can testify to that. Yeah. Sometimes they can't get rid of me out of my house.
That's great. And this is where we need to be going.
Yeah, because I mean, my main reason for that as well was because I never liked the idea of having to have, like, say, these cement blocks that you then have to then plaster over with sand and cement, and then you paint it.
And I was against painting.
That. Yeah. And the thing about it as well is that because I was in the sort of kind of decorating trade as well, I know that every paint you've got a painted surface, nearly ever so often you're going to have to keep painting that surface all the time.
Sure.
So my idea was, when I was coming here, I just wanted something that I'm not going to have to be painting every year, basically.
Sure.
So that's the reason why we went for earth blocks. Because I wanted kind of a brick building rather than, like, say, a cement block building. And it's worked out okay because we enjoy the house that we're in at the minute.
But you've got a flat roof, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a flat roof. That's the downside to it.
So what do you recommend? If you was to do it again, what would you do?
I'm not too sure. I'd have to sort of research whether there's a better way of doing that flat roof area. That's the only thing. Because the flat roof is made... it's predominantly sand and cement, isn't it?
Yes.
So basically, that helps to conduct the heat into the house.
Oh, right. Do you hear that, my lovely people?
Yeah. So that helps to conduct the heat into the house.
But you've got quite high ceilings.
Yeah, we've got high ceilings to try and compensate, but it still radiates a certain amount of heat because of the fact that on top of it, because it's a flat area.
Yeah, because you have the option to go up while you've done that.
Yeah.
And so it would have to be concrete. Is there any way of doing a roof or a ceiling with this clay
earth blocks?
I have not seen it yet.
I've not seen it. Have you heard of anything?
Yeah. No.
It's not an alternative. If anybody knows of a secondary way of roofing or going up again for the second story by with the red brick method or the clay method, I'd be interested.
To be honest, I think there is a way, and I'm going to look into it because right now with the business I'm about to kind of introduce, there's something called the waffles. So basically, it's individual square waffles, that have been stacked together with rebars in between, and then a thin screed of cement, also mortar on the top.
Is there insulation in between, or?
No, there's no insulation in between, but you can if you want to, but it's not gonna.
Can I ask, Sylvester? Do you know about the waffle method of building?
I probably don't know it by that term, but I'm sure.
So it's the individual kind of like slabs that you stack together to create the roof on the top.
Oh yes,
I was explaining it to you.
Yes, I know it. I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
So we were just discussing the benefits of clay bricks, earth blocks, as you might call them, or rammed earth. But what I've found, since my research, I found that with rammed earth you need at least 12 inches. So it's not really designed for small properties, it's for larger properties. When I went to Ghana, I saw even corporations are now using that. So, we're going back to the way it was.
Absolutely.
I love that.
It's brilliant.
I love it.
It's brilliant.
Wisdom of the past.
And the thing is, and the thing is,
bringing back old school things.
You're talking about your finishing that you didn't want to use paint and all that stuff. I have seen a woman in Ghana, and the finish on the stabilized earth block, it's absolutely exquisite. And she's been building. For the other day I saw her on YouTube. She said she's got one of the buildings that she showed is 5 years old, and it still looks new.
And his looks. How many years have you been in your house?
In our place for about 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, and his looks spanking new.
So I was driving through Koto the other day, and I saw some stores that have been. So for decorative stuff, there is this structure that comes out of the main building, and they use the stabilized earth bricks for it.
Okay.
When I saw it, I said, "Beautiful! Look at the
really
contrast.
does.
Look at the contrast between the brown clay bricks and the remainder of the building. Absolutely fantastic." 2 days later, I went past. They've plastered over it.
I suppose
that's a crime. No, it's a crime.
No, the crime actually, I think, is tiling.
Yeah.
In fact,
they tiled over it. They plastered over it and then put a tile over it.
Oh my God, I don't want to hear anymore.
I had to stop.
Yes. I think that's the weirdest thing. Is it just Gambia they do this? Tiling outside the house?
No, it's not just Gambia.
Have you seen that in any other African country?
Senegal.
I should say that some places they have these, facial finishes that they just put on the front of plaster.
That's the new kind of.
All over the United States, it's very common.
No, but that's it here. They're using it for industrial purposes, like for great big industrial commercial buildings.
They have face stone and all of that kind of stuff. But this is the first place I see where people putting on the outside of their building tiles.
Tiles.
And I'm seeing it reflected in the glass there. But
yes.
And it's not just any ceramic tiles as well.
Ceramic tiles. And I mean, yay.
And can you imagine if water gets behind?
Some of them look pretty good.
I want to thank you guys for taking your time out to discuss these issues, and I'm sure they're of concern to others. There's so much we can learn and teach each other.